Okay, I think we'll get going. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today as we give you a brief overview and demo of PeopleInsight. Next slide, please. I just wanted to do a few logistics before we get started. You should each see a control panel on the top right of your screen. Near the top of this panel, you'll see an orange or red arrow pointing to the right. If you want to minimize the control panel so you can see the webinar without obstruction, you can click on this, and the control panel will minimize to a vertical tab. At the bottom of the control panel is a text box where you can submit questions. Feel free to send us questions at any time during the session. We'll be answering questions throughout the presentation and leave a little bit of time at the end to answer any questions we don't have a chance to get to during the presentation. Next slide. So my name is Jennifer Henneman. I'm the Director of Client Value at PeopleInsight and a moderator for today's session. And I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Stephen Johnson, and let you know you're in great hands today, because Steve has been working with HR professionals for over 15 years, re-engineering HR processes, implementing HR systems, and of course developing workforce analytics solutions. And part of that secret sauce that Steve has brought to our offering is the focus on helping HR leaders engage the business through analytics, unlocking the potential of the HR team to make impact on organization performance. So without any further delay, I'm going to pass the floor over to Steve.
Great. Thank you so much, Jennifer, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for attending today's session. What I'm going to do today, I'm going to walk you through just a few slides to provide some context around our PeopleInsight solution, and then jump into a demo. And as Jennifer said, throughout the demo, I will be pausing, and through the demo, if you could be submitting questions, Jennifer will read them out, and so we can have a bit of an interactive session throughout the demo. So to start off, what we see in the market today and for many organizations is this universal challenge of HR executives and professionals challenged to get the insight into their workforce that's required to help them and their executives drive more informed, fact-based decision-making regarding their employees and people. One of the big challenges, we kind of lump it into three main areas around workforce and getting to workforce analytics, comes from the first being there's generally many sources of data within and external to an organization that are required to bring full context to the insight that they require for decision making. As you can see here on the left, when I talk about many data sources, that can be sources of data like HRMS systems, whether that's an ERP like PeopleSoft, SAP, Workday, etc. And then all the other systems around it, whether it be your performance management, talent system, recruiting, learning, etc. Now there are some organizations that have more and more of these areas within one HR platform. And even in that case, we do see that while that data is in one platform, from an analytics perspective, being able to connect that data to answer questions such as, what's the first year success rate for our recruits that we get through employee referrals, is generally a challenge because it requires information from multiple sources of data. The second is the tools that are generally available for organizations when it gets to workforce reporting and analysis. What we see is that's traditionally done through Excel. And Excel, while great for many tasks, when it gets to analytics, being able to trend, do period over period analysis, connect various data sources, it starts to run up against constraints and ends up being very error prone and very resource intensive just to be able to produce some results, let alone be able to take that, repeat it based on the different questions that are being asked, and then repeat it on a regular basis so they have ongoing insight. And the third is that traditionally organizations are faced when they're looking at solutions to these areas, at a solution being a large, complex solution that would require a data warehouse, business intelligence tools, skilled resources to build, deploy, etc. So those three things combined has really left organizations, when it gets to workforce analytics, behind the game, and oftentimes left with bespoke reporting through Excel. Now with PeopleInsight, we've designed it so that the out-of-the-box solution is cloud-based, and what we mean by that is that we host and manage the solution for our clients. So in terms of infrastructure, the software, the solution, the configuration, we take care of all of that for them. And what we're able to do is take data from their multiple data sources, and I would say on average across our client base, we're receiving anywhere from 4 to 10 different sources of data on a regular basis that we piece together and provide analytics on. And behind the scenes in PeopleInsight, we do have a very robust data warehouse, data storage with great visualization tools and capabilities all in one package. And what we've done is, it's part of our business model, is that we've taken the concept of software as a service, which I'll demo to you today, and we've wrapped that with a service where we provide ongoing support, guidance, and insight for our clients. And what we call our overall offering is insight as a service versus software as a service. Now, when it gets to our overall offering, you can think of it in three main areas. The first is out-of-the-box workforce analytics. So when it comes to the key metrics and analytics organizations require around workforce, we have that pre-built in a configurable solution that allows organizations not only to get rapid speed to value in terms of implementation times, but we provide expertise around that and knowledge of what are the best practice metrics, how do you combine that data, what's the best way to visualize and communicate that data to the various audiences. The important thing to note is the term here called personalize. And what we've done is combine the out-of-the-box component, which allows rapid deployment, with the ability for our clients to be able to personalize the rules, the naming conventions, the views, etc., to meet their specific needs. The second is connections across all data sources. One of the important things to note is that I already talked about organizations on average between 4 and 10 different sources, is that data can come from any data that resides, let's say, within HR types of data, as I showed earlier, but we expand beyond that for our clients and bring in business relevant data as well, whether that's sales quota data, financials data, client service data, so that you're able to get insight with connections from the HR to business results. And there's no limit, no boundaries on what type of data we can bring in. And the third keynote is that what we provide our clients as part of the ongoing subscription service is ongoing expert guidance. So we provide monthly insight sessions so that we can help our clients understand what's happening in their data and help them on their ongoing journey from day one, during the free trial period, all the way through to their life as a client, in helping them expand and maximize their value from workforce analytics. Now, as many of you probably know who are on the line, is that insight within an organization, the information, there's many different audiences who need that information. And as you can see here, we've just listed some typical areas or categories of audiences who require analytics and insight. And what we've done in working with our clients and with our experience is design various views in an integrated fashion so that it really is focused on providing each of those audiences with the insight they need at the relevant level of data to help them in their decision making within the organization. Now, what I'm going to do is pop into PeopleInsight. So you should see on my screen now, I've logged in prior to the demo. into our demonstration account. I'm logged in as an end user. And what you see in front of you here is what we call a sample of an executive scorecard. So if you recall from the previous slide when we talked about the different audiences and those needing an insight into workforce, is we've seen that at an executive level, whether that's your executive team, board of directors, etc., is the requirement for key metrics, but in a way that they're able to, within a 1 or 2 pager, be able to see those relevant metrics and have context into how they're performing, whether that is against a current month to a prior month, looking at variance indicators, being able to look at year-to-date, prior year-to-date, etc. We also have the ability within PeopleInsight to bring in data. We can set benchmarks, thresholds, external information, so that with a single glance at an executive level, they're able to see all their key metrics, how they're performing, where they're red, yellow, green, and be able to help inform decision-making moving forward. Now, one of the key things to note when we go through here is that based on your organization, those metrics may change. And as I said earlier, personalization and configuration is key within PeopleInsight. We have a very simple rule, which is if you have the data, then we can provide the metrics and the analysis on that data. As you can see here, this really follows a view that executives are used to getting in other areas of the business, whether that's sales, finance, etc., a very scorecard-driven view. Now, the other thing you can see here, I'm going to jump to another type of dashboard, has some similar context in terms of up, down, arrows, scorecard-like, but then you can see how each dashboard can be personalized with different information in whether it's table format, trend views, and the ability to, on the fly, be able to interact with that data. Now, as I talked about earlier, I'm going to show you a flow here that different audiences require different levels of data. Now, as you all know, there's going to be areas where it's executive scorecard, various dashboards, and then also the ability to be able to, as a user, and this isn't, I'm not talking executive user, more as a HR business analyst or as a functional specialist within HR business partner, the ability to get insight into questions very simply and easily on the fly. So what you see here is just an analytic view where as a user, with filters and what I'm going to show you here in a minute, show by values, I'm able to get to any cut of data that I need on the fly. So for example, I'm looking at my headcount numbers. If I want to be able to look at that for different periods of time, with a simple click, I'm able to see how that's changed over time. And then based on any data that's been uploaded, I can slice and dice that data. So I can look at that by different tenure levels. I can look at that by job levels within that. Generation views. Key thing to note, within PeopleInsight, as we onboard our clients and ongoing, we personalize this with all the fields that you would have in your data, the terminology or labels that you would want, and as you want them represented. And what's nice is right within PeopleInsight, as you saw earlier, we have executive scorecard views based on all that raw data, the ability to come, slice and dice as I showed, hover over, and the ability with a simple click to be able to get to the detailed list that supports any of the analysis I'm doing. In this case, I'm looking at a basic headcount view and drilling to a list. But one of the things that we found that's so important in an analytics solution is that you want to be able to provide to your audiences that aggregate summary view, slice and dice, and everybody will always want to be able to get to, well, who are the 5 or 6 in this category, etc. So the ability to drill and get to that detail all within the solution is critically important. Now, that's the first area. I just want to take you and take a look at just some views around demographics, scorecards, etc. And as you can see here right now, I'm in our main menu of PeopleInsight. This is what I would log into, and there's various areas that are all configurable by client as to different areas of analytics for each of our clients. Now, I'm going to pause here before I go into talent acquisition and see if there's any questions on the line.
Yes, Steve, we did have a question come in. You've mentioned a few times the ability to personalize the dashboard. Are there any limitations to this, or if I wanted to bring in another data source like revenue or sales quota, could I do that?
Yes, great question. You're able to bring that data in very easily, and that's all part of the service. Bring that in, and then as I showed you earlier, if you think back to that executive scorecard, there, for many of our clients, there'll be lines on there called, time to sales rep quota attainment. So looking at first year, looking at percent utilization, etc. So all of those are configurable based on each client's needs and data sources they provide.
Great, thank you.
So the next area I'm going to go into is talent acquisition. Many people may know that as recruiting. We call it talent acquisition just because we look at it viewing a holistic view, everything from what you would think is traditional recruiting data, which is your upfront requisition type data, candidate type data, where you can see here, key dashboards people want to see around time to fill, open requisitions, cycle times, on-time fills. Similar views apply here, as I showed earlier, around the show buys. So if I want to be able to look at it by specific recruiters, I'm able to do that. If I want to look at that by different job levels, with a click of the mouse, I'm able to do that. The other important thing to note, no matter where I am within PeopleInsight, as you can see, everything's very visual, easy to understand and interpret. I can take a clip here, put that to an image because I want to put it into a PowerPoint, or I may want to PDF this in a series of dashboards to send to executives on a regular basis. So the ability to take information and share that in relevant formats is a key piece of PeopleInsight. Now, as we talked about earlier, that key information where we see insight and value being unlocked as you connect various sources of data. So while very important in recruiting or talent acquisition is things like time to fill and ensuring that your days past target is within reason, another key component is understanding first year outcomes. So being able to connect your recruiting data to your HR data to look at things like first year performance, quality of hire, first year turnover rate, what the cost of that is to the organization. Now you'll see when I hover over here, I get all the details behind this. Now, this data, behind the scenes, we're matching and connecting the recruiting and the HR data. Now, for many of our clients, those are in different systems and there's no unique identifier connecting them. And we have the ability to do some matching algorithms to be able to match the data so that we can actually bring insight through the data even where there isn't a natural employee ID or linkage between them. The other thing is understanding recruiting channel effectiveness. So being able to understand based on the different channels you have, whether that's referrals, being able to see first year performance, in this case looking at 35% of first year reviews for referrals are outstanding versus agency 75. And then the ability to be able to drill into any of these numbers on the fly, I'm able to do that. So if I want to look at the various agency information, the simple filter, I can then click and look into the different agencies. Okay. Now, next thing I'm going to show you is when we start to get into some views around trending. We get into things like fill performance. We're able to see how organizations' performance across time, setting thresholds, being able to look at things by different targets for different groups. Once again, being able to look at that by different regions. And then on the fly, being able to drill in and look at quarterly performance within each of those. So hopefully what you're seeing here is the ability to be able to bring things in, connect for relevant data, and then be able to, on the fly, get to any connections of those data in a very visually appealing and relevant output for each of your audiences. And then another keynote here when it gets to any of your analytics, and I'm going to illustrate here through looking at vacancies around recruiting, is we have the ability to set revenue targets and then be able to provide context, which is able to say, based on the roles being filled, based on the targets, what's the revenue opportunity for various roles if they were able to be filled in a more timely fashion and hitting target. So what you're able to do is take the workforce analytics from just a raw count of fills, count of heads, and put a business context to that to understand what would be the ROI if we invested, in this case, for example, in different recruiting sources and channels for our sales rep acquisition. What could that mean if you want to invest $100K into other sourcing opportunities? The result on that, the opportunity is $1 million. So very much an ROI-driven discussion you can have by being able to connect your data to business outcomes and put business context to it. I'm going to pause there. Anything around the talent acquisition, Jennifer, that's come in on the line before I go to progression?
Yes. We did have a question around applicant data, and it says, do you have ways to analyze the applicant data so that I can understand an applicant to hire conversion rate?
Yes, great question. In the demo set that I showed today, I didn't hit on that, but we do have that, and we're doing that for many of our clients, is the ability to really look at applicant, or others may call it candidate data, bring in all that raw candidate data, and we produce what we call funnel metrics. So we're able to help organizations look at their recruiting process and funnel the same way as their sales organizations look at their sales funnel. And really key metrics can be driven from that in terms of conversion ratios, whether that's from applicant to hire or from different stages, so from interview to hire, and being able to drive that back into the context of the recruiting sources that they're using, and being able to understand what sources provide the best quality, the best conversion ratios, and then by bringing in the costs or the spend per channel, you're able to look at and understand what's your ROI on your various recruiting sources based upon their conversion ratios and the quality of the hire. Any other questions, Jennifer?
Not for now, no.
Okay. So the next area I'm going to go into is progression. So for many of our clients, we usually bucket this into a broader category that I would call mobility or movements, where promotions or progression is a component of it. And when we show here promotion rates, generally defined as movement from one pay grade or salary grade to another. And as I said, that's all configurable on those rules per client. But what you'll start to see here is the ability to be able to look at promotion rates, but drive that back into the context of performance ratings. So are we promoting our top performers? And what's very important, you're going to see here, and when I show in turnover, the ability to show things in the context of a rate, so that you're able to clearly understand the difference of, even though exceptional as a overall population is small, being able to understand the rate base, which is the number of promotions in this case over the average headcount, and how that changes. Same way here, we're able to look at it by all the different groups, by location, etc. Another key thing that we're able to start to do is look at and drive context in terms of understanding, even at an individual level, if you want to set thresholds on monitoring and understanding top performers, etc., by time since their last promotion, time since their last movement, etc., so that not only are you looking at the results on what has happened, being a promotion or a movement, but understanding where that may not be happening and being able to see if there's certain segments in your organization, whether that's locations, departments, etc., who aren't moving people at the rate that may be required in order to drive good career development and retention. Now, the last area I'm going to go into today in this demo is turnover. And what we're going to do in this case, I'm going to drive specifically to turnover rate. And for those of you on the line who in the past or to date are manually doing turnover calculations or any rate type calculations, one of the big challenges is being able to determine that average active headcount. So as you see here, when I hover, although 12% and 12%, the number of terminations is different, and the headcount has grown. Now, as you know, it's very complicated to calculate that, whether in Excel or manually, because as I want to cut that data, if I want to do it by industry best practice and get a very accurate insight into turnover, then I need to be able to look at what's been my average, what's been my end of month headcount for every month in the period, and then divide that by the number of months in the period. Now, doing that at an organization level is time consuming, but you can get to it. However, when you want to be able to understand that by department, and then within each department by tenure or by performance, segmenting and understanding your average headcount, let's say within customer service that had an outstanding performance through all periods of time, is very complicated, consuming, and for the most part doesn't get done. And what we've done in PeopleInsight, we've designed it in such a way that as I'm slicing and dicing and filtering, it is at the speed of thought, as you can see here, calculating the average headcount number of terminations for every segment as I click. So your ability to get insight into all the segments within your business is now a reality. And it's at your fingertips with a click of a button. And I'm going to pause there, and this is where I'm going to end the demo in terms of our time here today. And hopefully you've been able to, in our short period of time, get a good overview of PeopleInsight and what we offer, and also with that demo be able to understand not only the different ways that we can visualize and provide insight out to the various audiences in audience-specific format that's relevant for them, but the ability for those within your organization to be able to, with a click of a button, get instant segmentation and analytics on their business to help drive those decisions within your organization both today and for our clients it's ongoing now, and they're just rapidly adding more data and just growing the insight capability daily. Now, given the time here, I'm going to hand back over to Jennifer to wrap up.
I just wanted to thank you again for joining us today. Just so you know, we will be following up with you with an email to schedule a personalized discussion to understand how you can use PeopleInsight to accelerate your workforce analytics capabilities. And thank you again, and have a great afternoon.